Tales Under the Golden Sun are a series of official short stories released during the Dawntrail expansion. This is the fourth and final story being released at this moment, and it contains major spoilers for all main story content through patch 7.3. This is the story, Her Guiding Light. The summit of Everkeep was bathed in light of a clear blue sky, as Sveen offered up a solemn prayer for the departed. Not long ago, King of Resolve Soralgia had met his end upon this very ground. And since the subsequent thwarting of Calyx's plans to make endless of the Alexandrian people, the summit had become a place of mourning. Now, many who wished to restore the memory suppressed by the regulators sought an opportunity to honor lost loved ones, and so funerals had been held. They were modest affairs, little more than kin laying flowers at a memorial, but as long as the bereaved desired it, Sveen would always be there among them without fail. Despite his lofty position above the tumultuous clouds covering Alexandria, Everkeep summit offered no view of the sun. The serene, nigh endless blue heavens were but a result of air particles dispersing the natural light that struck the kingdom's gigantic dome. With the day's service concluded, the mourners, heart-heavy with memories of the deceased, returned one by one to their daily lives. At length only Sveen, the widow who served as chief mourner, and a handful of ushers remained upon the summit, as the sky took on hues of gold and crimson. Today's service had been for a Tonavafta man from Saktural. Around the memorial, white flowers had been laid, alongside the indulgence he had cherished in life and numerous precious mementos, which his wife was now quietly gathering. As Sveen made to address her, her eyes fell upon a weathered, leather-bound tome. "It was my husband's," the woman offered with a smile. "A collection of stories he purchased in Tuliolal before the dome appeared. He would read it to our daughter, who took such a liking to it as he filled every spare ilm with her own artistic creations." The woman rifled through the pages, and indeed, colourful creatures, which Sveen guessed were unique, leapt about the margins. The sight of them made her grin. "They remind me of my own grimoire." Her parents had gifted her the grimoire that she might one day wield it in defense of all she held dear. But this margin had first served as a canvas for her drawings of animals and mythical beasts. Even now, she still recalled Lord Captain Otis' lavish praise for them, and the burning in her cheeks which resulted. "A timeless masterpiece, the work of a true artiste." His second-in-command, Selenia, had been rather more measured. "That's quite lovely, Your Highness." The kindness in her smile was worlds apart from the stern visage he wore on duty. As memories came flooding back, Sveen closed her eyes in a bid to keep them from slipping away. Even then, we still found reason to laugh. "Once I have mastered magic, you will let me join you in battle, won't you?" "Of course. You'll be fighting alongside us in no time." "Over my dead body? How could you even think that I would allow you to put Princess Sveen in harm's way?" "I think it Her Highness's wish. And your gallantry would sound far more convincing could you boast even a single victory over me, Lord Captain." At this, Otis could only sputter, prompting Sveen to laugh. "Then it is my wish," she began, assuming a regal tone, "that we all do our best to protect Alexandria together." "I wish we made upon the evening star, shining brightly in the western sky. A promise made for peace in Alexandria." Much as he longed to continue reminiscing, Sveen willed herself back to the present, inquiring after the daughter whose drawings filled the book. She was told that the girl had outright refused to attend the funeral. It seemed this reluctance stemmed from Tonavafta's belief pertaining to the afterlife. According to oral tradition, the soul of the departed journeyed skyward to become stars, the light of which guided the living below. Once she regained her memories of her father, the old tales of the stars no doubt returned as well. She always believed so firmly in those stories, like the ones in this book. Unconsciously, Sveen raised her eyes to the heavens in search of the evening star, but found nothing there. Unlike the sun's brilliance, the light of the stars was not strong enough to pierce the dome. Perhaps the daughter had realized this and deemed the funeral unfit for her beloved father. Just as native Alexandrians held their own belief about death, so did those who had come from the other lands. And having accepted not only her position of leadership, but her place as a citizen of New Alexandria, Sveen wanted to honor all of the customs observed in the kingdom, just as my own recollections were preserved and respected. Inquiring further, Sveen learned that the daughter's name was FFXIV, and that they were of an age, give or take, 400 years of slumber. With your permission, I should like to meet her. A short while later, armed with the widow's description of a daughter, Sveen descended into Solution 9 to begin her search. FFXIV lended a hand as UPS Hallow in the evening, but as Sveen headed towards scanning port 9, she paused to speak with Leander. A merchant in the information sector, he had impressed her before with his keen eye for the streets, many coming and going, and it did not seem implausible that they might have observed FFXIV as well. Yeah, I've seen her. On her way to the fields, same as always, though she did seem a little downhearted, now that I think about it. Gesturing for her to wait a moment, Leander retrieved two of his shop's most popular treats, angel snacks, and pressed them into Sveen's palm. One for you and one for the modeling miss, he said with a wink. When Sveen made to pay him, he waved her away with a smile. That the Queen of Reason has accepted my wares is payment enough. Should word spread, I'll have a mob of eager customers on my hand. In the end, all Sveen could offer Leander in return was a courteous word of thanks before she took her leave of Solution 9. Arriving in Heritage Found, she bent her steps to UPS Hallow, where she encountered Mahusa, an experienced farmhand and one of the first acquaintances she made at the settlement. After hearing who it was that Sveen sought and why, Mahusa pointed toward the stables. Try in there. She always was eager to help tend their Onik, but I never knew that was her father's influence. Regardless, it's only natural she would need time to come to terms with the memory's restoration. Entering the stable, Sveen found the Tonavafta girl crouched in the corner. Sensing her presence, the maiden turned to look. Her cheeks were wet, eyes swollen and red, but they grew wide as she recognized the figure before her. Your Majesty! You must be FFXIV. My apologies. I didn't mean to give you a fright. I spoke with your mother earlier and hoped you might have time to talk. Sveen found a quiet spot outside the settlement for the two of them to sit, and presented FFXIV with the angel snack. As the girl gratefully sat about the dainty, Sveen spoke from the heart, making it plain her resolve to serve the people of Alexandria, regardless of their birth or station. Though understandably hesitant at first, little by little, FFXIV was able to open her heart. The Everkeep is a perfectly fine place for the memorial service. It's just, Father told me that beyond the storm clouds, there are countless stars burning bright in the sky. Our ancestors, who continue their journey through the heavens after fulfilling their life's purpose. They are always watching over us, guiding us, granting us strength. We made a promise to go and see them together one day, and when I remembered, Here she stopped, tears filling her eyes once more. It was a while before she spoke again, and when she did so haltingly, fighting waves of pent-up emotion. But Sveen listened patiently until the story was told. She learned that FFXIV's father had succumbed to illness before the dome had been breached, leaving their promise unfulfilled. Unable to overcome her feeling of abandonment and finding no solace in a mother lost to her own grief, FFXIV had eschewed the funeral to tend to the Onik, just as her father had once had. I wish I never made that promise. Unlike their memories, there was no way to bring back the loved ones they had lost. How it must have pained him to leave his daughter like that. Perhaps that was why Alexandria's former ruler, the Endless Fiend, had been so desperate to preserve and protect their people in living memory, forever free from the pain of loss. But such pain must endure in life to retain its meaning, and Sveen knew better than most that the unfulfilled promise of those who went before could yet be realized by those who came after. Let us go and see the stars then, together. Vesikve looked bewildered as Sveen took her by the hand and led the way. There would be danger traveling through the wilds, but Sveen was no longer without her magic. They had only to press on, and before long they would be outside the dome and beneath the unobscured heavens. But before they made it very far, a familiar voice rang out. "Hey, Sveen!" It was Wuglamat. Beside her stood Koana, Tuliolal other reigning vow, and Gululja, the boy who had inherited half of the Alexandrian throne. Seeing them, Sveen recalled their plans for the morrow. A funeral for Soralja. To publicly mourn the late king of Resolve would be unthinkable. Of course, the people still grieved the life sacrifice for his ambition, but a private service for family members had seemed only right, particularly for the sake of his young son. "We managed to steal away from duties a little earlier than expected," Wuglamat explained with a smirk. "I thought we would stop by and say hello when we reached Alexandria, but it looks like you already have plans." Sveen duly explained her intention to leave the dome with Vesikve and was about to bid her friend farewell when Wuglamat's eyes lit up. "We could come with you. We can keep watch while you two of you are stargazing." While Sveen was only too familiar with Wuglamat's unfailing generous impulses, Vesikve seemed wholly taken aback. Thankfully, Koana was on hand to offer some well-chosen words. "Your father was a son of Tuliolal, and a precious member of our nation. It would be our honor to help you fulfill the promise you made together." So it was that 3 rulers, 1 heir and a girl with a promise to keep, set off together on an impromptu adventure. Heading south through Heritage Found, they eventually reached Vanguard, through which they passed without pausing. Yet when they subsequently emerged on the other side of the fort, Gululja cried out in frustration. "But the sky was so clear before we left." Looking up, Sveen's eyes were greeted by a darkening blanket of grey. "I can see a break in the clouds further south," Koana offered. "If we keep heading towards Shalawani." "It's fine, really." The feat was heavy in Vesikve's voice. "I've put you to enough trouble as it is." Sveen leaned down to take Vesikve's hand and look her in the eyes. "Come now. All is not lost. We must see this through." She exchanged knowing glance with Wuglamat, who grinned and pressed her finger to her ear. Moments later, the Vow of Resolve was engaged in a lively chat via link pearl with a representative of sectoral railing, the company operating the route between Shalawani and Alexandria. "Good news," she declared at length. "The train we came in hasn't left yet, and they've saved us a place." When they arrived at the stop, the train was preparing to depart, Nitovikwe in the driver's seat. Spying them, she leaned out the window and waved for them to come aboard. "Let's chase some starlight." Seeing the open trepidation with which Vesikve gazed at the train, Sveen deduced that the girl had never encountered such a contraption, and gently guided her into the nearest coach. Soon after, the train creaked into motion, slowly gathering speed, and the barrier that had towered over them fell away, its rounded shape becoming ever more pronounced as they raced down the track. It was long before Gululja let out an excited cry. "Vesikve, look! The sky's starting to clear!" The groan of brakes became a light screech as the train slowed to a halt in the middle of the wilds. Vesikve's knees shook as she stepped out of the passenger car and tentatively lifted her head. Beyond the clouds lay a boundless expanse of unfathomable multitude of white points painted upon the sky. Drawing up beside her, Sveen could not help but wonder if the sight lived up to the ancestral tales of the Tone of Afta. But Vesikve's expression of rapt attention was answered enough. "These are the stars?" Vesikve whispered, raising her hand up to the sky. "Father." As Vesikve wept quietly beside her, Sveen reflected upon her own promise, those he had kept and those he had not. "The wishes I harbour for Alexandria are the reason I stand here today." As if reading Sveen's thought, Wuglamat broke the silence. "Promises are important. Even if you're separated, the hopes you share with others will continue to guide you. At least, they do to me." Just so, Sveen thought. Promises were a way to share the future with someone, and there was much she hoped to share with the people of Alexandria. a future as bright as the stars in the heavens, home to precious memories that might guide them to still greater tomorrows. "We can get a better view of the stars from over there," shouted Gululja, already on his way to a nearby hill. Uglamat leapt from the train to give chase, followed by a chuckling Koana. Stirred from her reverie by the commotion, Vesicua lowered her eyes from the firmament, a smile blossoming across her tear-streaked face. Sween smiled too and proffered her hand. "Shall we?" And that was the story, Her Guiding Light. The fourth and final short story releasing for now. I quite like that we get to see a little bit of the life of people in Alexandria after the memory returning and them having to deal with the fact that, well, they've lost people and trying to figure out how to mourn them. Though I am really hoping eventually they start to make the journey between Alexandria and Shalwani a little bit easier, not requiring as much combat. Maybe one day they will fix the train. So if you enjoyed the story, make sure to give the video a commentation by liking and subscribing. And in the end, all I want to say is takk fyrir að horfa, auðvitað yndislegan dag.